There is a widely held belief that delaying Social Security is always the optimal financial decision, that waiting increases monthly benefits and therefore leads to better long-term outcomes. And while this is mathematically true in many cases, it does not universally apply across all situations, because the system is not just about maximizing a number, it is about aligning income timing with real-life conditions, constraints, and uncertainties. What often gets overlooked is that Social Security is not a one-size-fits-all equation, but a system with multiple variables, including health, income needs, longevity expectations, and opportunity cost. And when these variables shift, the optimal decision can shift with them. The first situation where claiming at 62 can make sense is when health expectations suggest a shorter time horizon. This is not about predicting exact outcomes, but about understanding that the system is designed around averages, and if an individual's circumstances deviate from those averages, the mathematical advantage of waiting may diminish. In such cases, receiving benefits earlier can result in a higher total lifetime payout, not because the monthly amount is larger, but because the number of payments increases. Another situation involves immediate income needs. If an individual does not have sufficient alternative income sources, delaying benefits may require drawing down other assets more aggressively, which can introduce additional risk or reduce financial stability. In this context, Social Security can function as a stabilizing income stream, allowing other assets to remain intact or grow over time. There is also the consideration of employment flexibility. For individuals who wish to reduce working hours or transition out of full-time employment, claiming early can create space for that transition without fully relying on savings. This is not about replacing income entirely, but about supplementing it in a way that reduces pressure on earned income. Another scenario emerges when considering spousal dynamics. In some cases, one partner claiming early while the other delays can create a balanced strategy where immediate income is combined with a higher future benefit. This approach reflects the idea that optimization does not always occur at the individual level, but at the household level. Opportunity cost also plays a role. If the funds received from Social Security can be used in a way that provides value beyond the incremental increase gained by waiting, whether through reducing debt, maintaining investments, or supporting necessary expenses, the decision to claim early can align more closely with overall financial stability. There is also a behavioral dimension to consider. Some individuals may experience greater peace of mind from having a consistent income stream earlier, which can influence spending patterns, risk tolerance, and overall financial decision-making. While this is not a mathematical factor in the traditional sense, it can affect outcomes indirectly through behavior. Another situation involves uncertainty in policy or personal circumstances. While Social Security is designed to be stable, future conditions are never entirely predictable, and some individuals prefer to reduce uncertainty by beginning benefits earlier, rather than optimizing for a future that may change. Finally, there is the simple reality that financial decisions do not exist in isolation. They interact with lifestyle preferences, personal goals, and individual priorities, and in some cases, the flexibility and immediacy of early benefits align more closely with how someone chooses to live. What becomes clear through all of these situations is that the decision to claim Social Security at 62 is not inherently right or wrong. It is conditional. It depends on how the system interacts with individual circumstances. And while delaying may maximize monthly income, claiming early can, in certain contexts, maximize stability, flexibility, or total lifetime value. The key is not to follow a generalized rule, but to understand the structure of the system and how it applies to a specific situation. Because in financial systems, optimal decisions are rarely universal. They are contextual, shaped by the interaction between mathematical principles and real-world variables. And when those variables are taken into account, what appears suboptimal in theory can, in practice, become a rational and well-aligned choice. And when you extend this analysis further, the decision begins to move beyond a simple comparison of monthly benefit amounts and into a broader evaluation of how income timing interacts with the overall financial system a person is operating within. Because Social Security is not just an isolated stream of income, it is one component within a larger structure that includes savings, investments, expenses, and time. One of the more subtle dynamics is how early claiming can influence the sequencing of withdrawals from other assets. In many financial models, delaying Social Security is paired with drawing down investment portfolios in the earlier years of retirement, with the expectation that higher future benefits will compensate for the earlier withdrawals. But this approach assumes that markets behave in a relatively stable way during that period. In reality, early retirement years can coincide with periods of market volatility, and withdrawing from investments during downturns can have a lasting impact on portfolio longevity. By introducing Social Security income earlier, even at a reduced level, it may be possible to reduce the need for withdrawals during those periods, which can preserve capital and allow investments more time to recover. This is sometimes referred to as managing sequence risk, and while it is not always the dominant factor, in certain conditions it can outweigh the benefits of waiting for a larger monthly payment. There is also the consideration of marginal utility, which tends to change over time. In earlier years of retirement, when health, mobility, and energy levels are generally higher, additional income can have a greater impact on quality of life because it can be used in ways that are more meaningful or accessible. In later years, while income remains important, the ways in which it is used may become more limited, and as a result, the incremental value of higher payments may not fully translate into increased utility. This does not suggest that one period is more important than the other, but rather that the timing of income can influence how effectively it is used. Another layer involves tax positioning. Depending on the structure of other income sources, claiming Social Security earlier can sometimes help distribute taxable income more evenly across years, potentially reducing the concentration of income in later periods when required minimum distributions or other factors come into play. While the specifics vary widely based on individual circumstances, the general principle is that income timing can influence tax efficiency, and in some cases, earlier benefits contribute to a more balanced distribution. There is also the interaction between Social Security and personal risk tolerance. For some individuals, the idea of relying heavily on future, higher payments introduces a level of uncertainty, even if that uncertainty is statistically small. Claiming earlier can reduce this reliance by bringing part of that future income into the present, effectively converting a portion of a delayed benefit into an immediate, known quantity. This can create a sense of stability that supports more consistent decision-making in other areas of finance. In addition, the concept of break-even age, which is often used to compare early versus delayed claiming, can sometimes oversimplify the decision. While it provides a useful reference point, it assumes a static environment where variables such as spending needs, investment returns, and personal circumstances remain constant, but in practice, these variables evolve over time. This means that the actual outcome is influenced by a range of factors beyond the break-even calculation, including how the income is used, how other assets perform, and how long the system remains intact. Another important consideration is flexibility. Early claiming can provide a degree of optionality that may not be immediately obvious. With a baseline income established, individuals may have more freedom to adjust other aspects of their financial plan, whether that involves changing spending patterns, reallocating investments, or responding to unexpected events. This flexibility does not necessarily increase total income, but it can improve the system's ability to adapt to changing conditions. There is also a behavioral feedback loop that can emerge once income begins. Receiving a consistent payment can reinforce a sense of financial structure, which in turn can lead to more deliberate planning and more stable financial habits. While this effect varies from person to person, it highlights the idea that financial decisions are not purely mechanical. They also influence behavior, and behavior influences outcomes. Over longer periods, these feedback loops can have cumulative effects that extend beyond the initial decision. From a broader perspective, the choice to claim at 62 can be seen as a way of prioritizing present stability over future maximization. But that framing can be misleading if it implies that one is inherently better than the other. In reality, both approaches are forms of optimization, just across different dimensions. Delaying optimizes for higher future income under stable conditions, while early claiming can optimize for reduced risk, increased flexibility, and alignment with current needs. The appropriate choice depends on which variables are most relevant in a given situation. This is also where historical context can offer some insight. Across different periods, individuals who aligned income timing with their personal circumstances, rather than strictly following generalized rules, tended to maintain more stable financial trajectories, not because they maximized every variable, but because they balanced them. They considered not only how much income they would receive, but when they would receive it, and how that timing fit within the broader system they were navigating. And this brings the discussion back to a central idea. Financial systems are not static. They evolve over time, influenced by both external conditions and internal decisions. Within these systems, timing can be just as important as magnitude. Receiving a slightly smaller amount at the right time can, in some cases, create more stability than receiving a larger amount later under less favorable conditions. So when evaluating whether to claim Social Security at 62, the question is not simply whether the monthly benefit is lower, but how that benefit integrates with the rest of the financial structure. Does it reduce pressure on other assets? Does it provide flexibility? Does it align with personal priorities and constraints? And does it support a system that can continue to function over time? Because ultimately, the goal is not to optimize a single variable in isolation, but to create a financial structure that is coherent, resilient, and aligned with real-world conditions. And within that structure, early claiming can, in certain situations, be not just a viable option, but a strategically consistent one. And there is one final layer that often remains understated, which is the role of adaptability over time. No financial decision exists in a fixed environment, and what appears optimal at one moment may evolve as circumstances change, which means that the value of a decision is not only in its immediate outcome, but in how well it allows adjustment in the future. Claiming Social Security at 62 can, in some cases, create a more flexible starting point, where income is already integrated into the system, allowing other variables, such as spending, investing, or working patterns, to be adjusted gradually rather than all at once. This gradual adjustment can reduce the need for abrupt changes later, which are often more difficult to manage both financially and psychologically. It also reinforces the idea that financial planning is not a single decision, but a sequence of decisions made over time, each one interacting with the next. And when viewed through that lens, the choice of when to claim benefits becomes less about finding a perfect answer and more about selecting a starting position that can evolve with changing conditions. Because in systems influenced by time, uncertainty, and human behavior, adaptability is not just an advantage. It is a form of stability in itself. And within that perspective, it becomes easier to see that the strength of a financial decision is often measured not by how precisely it maximizes a projection, but by how well it continues to function as real conditions shift over time. Early claiming, in this sense, can act as a stabilizing anchor, introducing a predictable element into a system that may otherwise depend on variables that are less certain, such as market performance or future income capacity. This does not eliminate uncertainty, but it redistributes it, placing more of the unknown into areas that can be adjusted while maintaining a consistent baseline of support. And over time, that baseline can serve as a reference point, allowing other decisions to be made with greater clarity, because part of the system is already secured. In that way, the decision becomes less about choosing between present and future, and more about shaping how both interact, creating a structure where each phase of time supports the next rather than competing with it. And when that interaction between present and future becomes more balanced, the entire decision starts to resemble a form of financial pacing rather than a single irreversible choice. Because income timing is not just about when money arrives, but about how it shapes the rhythm of spending, saving, and adjusting expectations over time. Early Social Security benefits can, in this context, function as a steady tempo within that rhythm, smoothing out transitions that might otherwise feel abrupt if they depended entirely on variable sources like investment returns or part-time work. This steadier structure can make long-term planning more coherent, not because it increases total resources in every scenario, but because it reduces the pressure to constantly adapt under uncertainty. And in systems where uncertainty is unavoidable, reducing pressure often becomes its own form of advantage, allowing decisions to be made with greater calm, consistency, and clarity over time.